So Cal, tell me about your existing programs at Harvest House Atlantic.
Sure. We opened up in 1997 a drop-in center that was just meant to engage people that needed help moving forward in their lives, and we quickly realized people had nowhere to live, so we opened up an overnight shelter for men. Within a few years, we saw that shelter opportunity grow, so we began to purchase some houses and have people to places where people could come to for safety and rebuilding their lives. And then before long, we purchased a building on High Street that was to be a larger community center and shelter. And so we have 32 beds for men, or 32 beds for men and 8 for women every night. They come in, they'll get a meal, they'll get a night's sleep, some good support, people to help them move forward. And then we begin to have some real problems with addictions. People coming in with real difficulty with addictions, and it was uncomfortable for those who were living in the shelter. So we opened up a 9-month addiction recovery program in around 2005, been doing that for 12 years. And then we saw another group of people, as these guys were getting the help, there was many that couldn't come to our program because they couldn't give up 9 months of their life. They had families, they had children to support, and yet they were struggling. So we prayed about that for a number of years, and we really felt to open up a step-up housing program. And this has now grown to 4 locations, 28 rooms for men, 8 for women. So they come in if they're willing to work, they're willing to go to school and further education, or they just come in and volunteer in program or in the community and do something with a plan to move forward. And this program has become so successful that those that are living there are starting to reintegrate into the community because they have the support of a faith community, people of goodwill that come in to help us, and together we help put a community of support. So to live in the house, they're living together in community, so they're experiencing fellowship, brotherhood. They have to be accountable to the purpose of being there. Someone's there at nighttime, a live-in superintendent. How was your day? And that makes all the difference in the world. How was your day? And someone to talk to, someone to engage at the end of the day. We want to build structure into their life. So instead of just sleeping all night because of their past lifestyle, get up in the morning, make some decisions to move forward, to look for work, or, take in a program. And the fourth one, when people get to this point of paying it forward, and by paying it forward, we simply mean do something for someone else in your community at no gain to yourself. And the ones that begin to do that, you really see them starting to engage in the community. And breaks, the biggest thing about addictions is isolation. So it breaks that isolating, but now I'm learning to be a giver, learning to help somebody else, and they find value in their life. So we're really excited about this program and where it can go to. And we believe this program could go into other places as well. There's many other places looking for how can they help people successfully reintegrate into a community with the supports and help necessary.
Tell me about the economics of the Step Up program then.
Yeah, it's probably the most economical program we have because once we have a house with 8 to 10 rooms in it, people are either working, they're going to school, or social development will help them until they get working or going to school. So they have a chance to get their own bedroom. If they're in shelter, they're in a room of 1 to 8. And as soon as they say they want to either work or go to school, they get their own bedroom. So we get room rentals that come in. So it's a really self-sustaining program as long as you have a caseworker or someone that can just be over the program. And that's where we look for a little bit of help, trying to find enough to raise for a caseworker. But the program itself, the housing runs itself, the heat, the lights, the mortgage for being there, it's a self-sustaining program. Where addictions is $1,500 a month to have enough staff to keep someone in a program where you have staff there day and night. So it's really something that could go into communities and be an asset. It's $120,000 a year to keep a man in prison in the federal system, and about $80,000 to keep them in provincial. So to bring them into a room where they have some support and keep them out of that lifestyle is really helping the community in a tremendous way.
If you say the word Step Up program and somebody's eyes glaze over because they go, oh, what the heck is that? So can you give it to me in a nutshell? And also then what makes that different or so unique that you're not seeing it anywhere else yet? So
Right. Okay, because this can only really work with a community that's already established in some way, where there's some support, someone available to help somebody, a pastor or a leader or a mission in your town. And when someone comes through our shelter, they know they're just getting off the street, but they're in a room of 1 to 8 people. Someone's snoring, someone's getting up through the night. It's clean, it's safe, but it's not always the most peaceable place to sleep because you're living in a room with 8 other people. So within 3 days of someone coming to our shelter, they're told about our step-up housing opportunity. If we see they're staying on locally, and they go, as you asked, what's step-up housing? We say, well, step-up housing is if you're willing to work, go to school, or be part of a program, you're stepping forward with a little bit of your own plan. How can we help you to get to where you really want to go? And so that changes everything. So people start realizing if I just take a step, I can get my own bedroom. And from there I can learn to live in community and learn to, still be part of a community center or supports in the community. And once people realize they're not going to be left alone in it, there's someone there to help them with their resume, help them develop that plan. it really becomes an attractive program to someone who's lonely or someone that's looking for that extra help.
Sounds like it's a kind of a combination of, it's a hand up,
Right.
but it's personal responsibility.
Personal responsibility. It has to be. We did it with rooming houses before, and there was no purpose to people's lives, and they were still using, still struggling, and just no purpose. And one day we thought, if we could just help someone identify with something they want to do in life. What was your dream when you were a little kid? Nobody dreams of being an addict or a prostitute or a criminal. That comes because of life and some, things that happen throughout life. So if you've gotten caught up in some of those things, how can we help you move forward in your life and become productive? And I don't know who doesn't want to become productive in life, but some people just don't know where to start. And Step Up Housing offers that solution.
Okay, so why should government, whether it be local, provincial, federal, why should they be excited about the Step Up program?
Well, what it is, Craig, in Moncton, there's a real focus right now on supportive housing. And it costs the government millions. They've been experimenting with it the last 7 or 8 years right across the country, so I'm sure each city's aware, but it's millions and millions of dollars. And then after your pilot runs out, 5 years, you're still looking for millions of dollars more. So it's a costly program when you have to have paid employees to put support around people and help them with their housing. But when you work through a faith-based community who's already existing, and they take on the housing part that has the supports, gets them to mental health, gets them into whatever treatment they need, or support from within the program. Just someone to be there to help them take their next step is so huge. So it doesn't cost to have all those things in addition. They're already in place when you have a faith-based community working with people of faith and goodwill. We work with both communities working together. And so the cost to run that is almost self-sufficient. So we're seeing a really good response from government officials, from probation, from parole officers. It's also a great aftercare for someone that's coming out of the system that's asking for some supportive housing that may be beyond the halfway house level. We're connecting with ministries that are looking at aftercare now. How can we help someone being released to successfully reintegrate? If you don't help someone that's coming out of a prison within the first 3 weeks, they're going to start connecting with the wrong people again, and within a few months they're back in prison. This connects people to the supportive community to help so they can maintain and reintegrate in a successful way. So I believe it saves hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions, from the court systems.
Why should the average citizen in the community care about Step Up and what it is?
Right. Every community has people that are just roaming the streets, involved in different criminal activity or drug dealing or just trying to survive. When people are trying to survive for the basics of life, food, lodging, things that they need, if they don't have it, they're going to end up stealing or somewhere. Crime comes into the scenario at some point. Most of the people in our programs have had some criminal record just because they're trying to survive. So when survival is not there and you have your food taken care of, you have your lodging, then it's just they're able to start thinking about what their next steps in life are. So I believe it really reduces criminal activity in a city, reduces violence, and reduces people walking around heavily intoxicated, because in these programs they've got to maintain a level of sobriety to stay with them. And what happens is once they've come in for a few weeks and experienced that program, most within about a month of being there, you start seeing the changes in their life. And now if they're not keeping with their agreements to be in Step Up, we talked to them about maybe getting a room somewhere else. By that time, they don't want to go anywhere else. They like the supportive, safe environment. So it gives you a little bit of leverage with them to engage them and say, well, if you're going to live here, we need to help you develop your plan to move forward. We want you to be productive. How can we help you? So it's not a mandated program. It's how can we help you develop your plan.
So are you forcing God on people that come to this program?
That's a good question, and we get asked that by probation officers and things. We have because we have a community center that has a shelter and also an addiction center attached to it. We have morning chapel every morning at 9 that people are welcome to come in. They know they're welcome to come. 2 o'clock every afternoon we have life skills, anger management, budgeting, hygiene. And then at 4 o'clock, there's another discipleship class that we have, and they can choose whatever program they want. So if they want to come and just do life skills or things like that, anything that helps them move forward. So whether they come to faith or not, that's not the issue. We're going to love them because we've experienced God loving us, and we just want to pay it forward. And this is most faith-based communities. That's what they're trying to do, is pay it forward because they've experienced the love of God and it's changed their life. We want to allow others to experience that God's love in a tangible way, but not by force. Just by loving them, providing the necessary services and things to move forward.
So for people who do get to hear your message, whether it be a Christian businessman, somebody that wants to volunteer, so what can people do to help?
Well, there's several ways. We present what we're doing so people can engage if they want to help us financially. It's all faith-based. People want to give towards it, they can. If they want to come and get involved, on hands, helping someone with resumes or driving them to an appointment or coming and being part of our program in some way. We feed probably 150 meals a day. So we're always looking for someone to come in and help prepare the meals, some that come after work and help serve the meals, someone to be there, just how was your day, to greet people at the door. The skilled community, we're looking for, as we continue to develop our programs, for retired people that have skills. They can come in and teach people carpentry, all these kind of things, stained glass or sewing. We have a women's group that comes in and does knitting. And they just love not only the learning, but also the companionship of elderly people around them. I believe the elderly people are some of the most unused gifts that we're looking for, because some have lost their moms and their grandmoms and their granddads. So when elderly people come in, they need to know there's a purpose for their life at their age to come in and mentor the younger generation. So we really welcome, we just call them elderly or older people. Not old, just getting older. But in the space of eternity, what's that?
Yeah, it's getting better like a fine wine.
There you go. That's right.
Tell me about some of your other programs. So tell me first, maybe in a nutshell, the grander vision.
The grander vision, Craig, is something we're really excited about. Because of all that we've been able to accomplish, all our programs are full or at capacity. And so we've met with our board, we've met with our teams, and how can we move forward? And we don't want to put a ceiling on what we do, because though we're able to help a greater number of people, the more you help, the more you find there is. So we said we're not going to put a ceiling. We're going to move towards. We raised some money so far towards what we call our skills development building, and that's right in the back of our recovery property in the area. And we'd like to purchase and renovate a property, 2,700 square feet, and bring in someone who can help teach them carpentry, stained glass, welding, car detailing, woodworking. We would like to make patio equipment. Everybody has patio, furniture, so we'd like to do that. And just give them some training. Many of the people in our program have come to faith, or they come to experience a community. They like being among us, but when they go to leave, they still haven't got any skills. So we want to send them back out with some skills that they can get work from. And we begin to be their first resume. They've been with us for 6 months. They've learned. So company calls, this person done some work with you. Yes, they've done. They've volunteered with us. We teach volunteerism as part of your resume. If you haven't got one, start by volunteering. Employers love to hire someone who's a faithful volunteer. If you're faithful when you're not paid, how much more faithful will you be when you're compensated for what you do? So, we're trying to reach out in that way. Next spring or summer in 2017, we're looking at opening a women's addiction recovery program for 9 months. This is so needed in our area. Women coming to us and having to say no. We don't have a long-term program. We have shelter for men and women, step-up housing for men and women, but they got to stay reasonably clean to be able to stay in that program. But someone that's struggling with a serious addiction, we're opening a women's recovery program next year. And finally, we want to expand our step-up housing program. We're at capacity, and so we see the need to expand this from 36 rooms to 72 rooms and beyond. We don't want to put a final number on it, but we'd like to double our program in the next 18 months.
Obviously, what you've done, you're inspired.
Right.
Inspired by God, inspired by your own past.
Right.
And your need is not unique. It's the same need that we see in communities all across Canada
everywhere.
And elsewhere.
Yes. Yeah.
So what if someone hears your message and they're in somewhere else in Canada, is there some way that you can assist them?
Absolutely. As we're working on doing our visuals, our website, people are aware of the programs that we have. Well, what we do is welcome someone if they want to begin something, they got a serious interest, is to come and spend a few days or a week with us. Being in the program, they can attend all our classes that we offer, our community events, our staff training. We had the newest center just opened up in Plaster Rock this year in January, and their team came and spent time with us. So the best way is, rather than someone see the program, is come and experience it. And so we say, come on up, we'll put you up. We got lots of rooms available because of what we do. And so we had a team come up from Plaster Rock and spent 3 days with us. They went back so thrilled and with ideas. Now they could see where it could lead to. They were just starting off small, like we did. We started with a little storefront on Mountain Road, 1997. And just with a few bedrooms over top, and now we have 6 locations we look after in Moncton. And as long as it starts somewhere, you start responding to the needs of the people. And as provision comes in, as help comes in from churches, businesses, government, we can do more together than any of us could do on our own. And I think this could be transported anywhere. And I'm really excited about the step-up housing because it's needed everywhere I've gone. The missing ingredient is supportive, affordable housing with people around that can help support the program, so the person's not alone. Housing isn't enough by itself. It's almost like having a baby born and just putting a bottle in its mouth, and that's it. It needs the comfort of the mother, it needs the family around them, to continue nurturing, and that's what step-up housing can offer in various communities. And it gives people an opportunity to volunteer and be part of being productive in their community. Everybody wins when we're all working together.
So with the successes that you're having, tell me what's the Maskery success formula. What's happening? What's happening, and what do you even do, even on a daily basis, you personally,
right,
to nurture and feed that success? And then what are those components?
Right.
Here's a broad question.
Yeah. Well, for me, the driving point was I had come to know the Lord 35 years ago while in prison. I'd lost my family, my mother, father, and I was really the product of coming to faith through hearing Billy Graham, an inspiring message to begin with. But when I went up to the chapel and saw all the volunteers that were coming into the chapel and loving us and caring for us, I saw the power of true faith community. People that genuinely loved you, weren't afraid to touch you, weren't afraid to put their arms around you. And I remember being in that setting for a couple of years, and while my life was being transformed, this vision was growing in my heart. Why couldn't we have this, oasis-type community, nurturing community on the street to reach people before they ended up making the choices I made to go into places like Dorchester, So that's the vision that I always go back to, 35 years of being the product myself of a faith community. And when I see someone lonely, hurting, a prostitute on the street, or a guy coming out of prison, I think, where's the missing family, the support? Something's gone wrong in their background somewhere. So in the faith community, we have a chance to put around them the spiritual mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and family that some of them may never have. Some of them may, as they move forward, have restored relationships. In my case, my father came to faith as well, and I was able to raise my children in the faith. And I saw the value of faith community. So everything I do today, Craig, is how to put a faithful, giving, caring people around the lonely, the hurting, the disenfranchised, and have them feel included in the family of faith. But I've also witnessed how it helps somebody from the faith community feel valued as they're giving. And we have many people come in and say, we thought we were coming to give to another person, but we've received so much by being here and being a part. So that's what drives me every day. And if we can provide this in other locations, I think of, here we are in Ontario, London, Ontario. A couple weeks ago I was in Kitchener and seeing the homeless population in Kitchener. And everywhere I go, I see this lost, lonely community. Because they come from that, I recognize it very quickly. And I know if we could engage people in other cities with a way to reach out to their lost, lonely, and hurting, there's many people in that community that would do it. I was at a banquet here in London last night, and over 250, 300 people all gathered around, how can we help inmates coming out of prison? And I was just overwhelmed with the love and the support of ministries like that. And then being with Sheila from Hebron, who's been doing this for 40 years, her and her husband reaching into prisons and trying to provide aftercare for when they come out so they can readjust. Because all of us are learning the power of faith community. And not just denominationalism in the church and being isolated, but a way for even churches to work together, businesses to come in and feel a part of that. Because everyone knows it's right to help the prostitute, person struggling with addictions, someone coming out of prison. If we don't help them, their life is going to become more unmanageable and it's more destructive to our communities. So it's a win-win when we provide oasis communities like this for support.
Everyone prays different and they have their own
right.
personal way of praying.
Right.
And I think we can all learn from hearing how others pray.
Right.
What's your personal daily prayer for yourself,
right.
with God, but also your mission?
Well, for 35 years, I can't say every day, but almost every day when I get up, I first thank the Lord for allowing me to be a part of life again, and I pray for wisdom. Because I'm not that bright to do all that I'm doing. I just say, Lord, help. I need wisdom. Help me to be, to engage someone in a productive way, to provide opportunity. And I ask Him for the divine contacts every day. I ask Him to connect me with people of faith and goodwill. Because I believe all of us are created in the image of God. We all have different places where we're at in life, but we all know what's right to help the broken and hurting. So I've really learned that. So we love working with people of all different faiths, all different backgrounds, because we believe in the heart of it, we're going to experience Him somewhere. Because He is a God of love. He cares about people. And I figure if there's 7 billion people on the planet, He must be meant for each of us to connect with some of them. So we just got to find ways to allow people to do that. So that's my prayer every morning. And I just pray, Lord, I want to be a blessing wherever I go. I said I was once destructive, and I didn't like the feeling that went along with that. Lord, I want to be a blessing, and how can we work together with people to do that?
If there was a very short message from Cal Maskery that was playing on the screen in a
Right.
church to a congregation, maybe as part of a service, what brief message could you give to a congregation as to that? Maybe it's people sitting in those pews that
Right.
are helping people, but maybe personally would like to, but maybe have never
Right.
had the opportunity to reach out or know how to. What could you say to them?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because everything I do today goes back to my first community, as I shared. And there was a man named Pierre Allard. He was a chaplain in Atlantic Canada, went on to become the chaplain across Canada, I believe. And he was so good at going out into the churches in the greater Moncton area, and was his message. He'd tell them about the prison ministry, the young men he was reaching, and he would say, Christian, are you willing to get out of your comfort zone and come in and help these men? Tell them that not only does God love them, but you love them by your very presence. So he would provoke people in a nice way, say, will you step out of your comfort zone? Because that's all it takes, is getting out of our comfort zone, believing that we could somehow make a difference with the Lord working through us, that we can make that difference. So I would say to anybody listening here today, that would you be willing to step out of your comfort zone? There's a longing in your heart to be involved in life in a meaningful way. All of us have that somewhere. Come and get involved with our ministry. There's many other faithful agencies in our communities that are making a difference. Harvest House isn't the only one. We want to work with others who are doing it. So get out of your comfort zone. Take that first step of volunteerism and see what it'll do for you and for your family, and make a difference in the lives of those who need you.
Your ministry is essentially helping adults.
Right.
But there's no doubt that you have a prevention gene in there. Right. Through it. And if you have a chance to speak to youth, those that are in needing some guidance, what right. kind of message would you have for the youth?
I would say to a young person is listen to those who have gone before you. People that have taken wrong steps in life. My father spent 33 and a half years in prison. When I asked him how he could come and help us, he said, Cal, I've been in prison all my life. How could I make a difference? And then a couple weeks later, he comes and said, Cal, you know what? He said, I'm willing to come and help. I can at least tell people which way not to go. So there's people that have gone before you that have made all the mistakes that you're about to make. And if you don't get hooked in with some people that are healthy in their thinking, that are productive, making good choices, learn from those who are making good choices. When I was in prison, I'd see young men, 16, 17 in prison, learning from older convicts who were in prison because they were caught for what they've done. So they weren't good criminals. We were caught. I was one of them. How can we teach other people the way of life that's been destructive for ourselves? So learn from those who are making good choices. Get involved with people that are there to help you and really care about you. People that'll tell you you're going off base. Don't listen to people who aren't living out what they're telling you they're doing.
Oh, Cal, what do you know? My parents, the seniors, the adults around me, they don't know what they're talking about. I do much better if I've got a bottle in my hand or a needle in my arm. So you're not telling me anything that's going to help me.
Right. And if things continue successful for you with that way of thinking, you'll know within the next few years how things are going. And when you know that things are off base, don't be afraid to seek out someone that you know is doing well. Look for help, ask for help, and let someone be family to you. But you still have to come to a place where they're making their choices. And so I believe what those of us that have been around for a little while can offer, that we're here when they're ready to talk, when they're ready to share, and get youth involved with youth. Youth have a great influence with youth. If you can mentor some young people. In our mission, we mentor them from younger to older because we want to reach everybody. But we find the ones who are ready to respond are usually a little bit older, but we still want to plant seeds of hope and relationships with the younger generation. Say, we love you, we care about you, and we're here. And they have to be willing to live out their choices. We can't force anything on them. And they react when we do, so we can just be our arms open and be ready and willing when they're ready. And I got my children involved very young in what we do. They were always with me. I didn't let them hang out at the mission, just because I wanted their influence to be well, but I'd take them with me. It was learning. If we were serving, they were always with me. I remember the first time with Nathan, and he was 8 years old. I took him in, I think it was Dorchester, and I had him share his testimony. And I'll never forget Nathan getting up in front of all these, criminals and inmates, and he said, when I was a little boy, they just roared with laughter, and he was just sharing his journey, how he had his own struggles in his mind, and he remembers that. He said, I may not have done things that caused me to be in prison, but I've thought about them. And he realized those thoughts are there that we all have to deal with. And so Nathan was dedicated to the Lord as a baby, and I never hid my life from him. And my daughter, Alicia or Kayla, never hid my background. I share with them, but I share with them how I got turned around in my life through faith in the Lord and being involved in a faith community. And so I always found opportunities for my children to be involved. And we do, when young people come in, we want to really highly engage them. And they're just more rare at that age to be seeking help. But we definitely want to, be very kind and very loving and gracious towards young people.
So you may or may not want to do this, I don't know. But I'm just wondering about, so that, say, 14, 15, 16
right.
years old, that's pretty,
yeah.
it's pretty critical time, right?
Yeah.
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 So are you able to reach back to Cal Maskery as the 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, and name those feelings?
Yeah.
So that the kid of that age watching this
right.
can now directly relate to that.
Yeah.
Are you able to?
Yeah, I am. My young years was very lonely. I grew up in my grandparents' home. My dad went off to prison. My mom left young. And I remember just the feelings of who am I? Where do I fit in? This isn't my family, but it was my family. And, my parents were much older, so a lot of the families around say, oh, your parents are so old, And I have to explain, well, they're my grandparents. They've adopted me, and my dad's away. And, it was just really confusing time for me. But I remember the years coming into my teens, just not knowing who I was, feeling lonely, trying to fit in with friends, and starting to do things that I really didn't want to do just because that's what everybody else was doing, experimenting in sexuality and getting involved in things that I shouldn't have, things that later brought shame to me. Experimenting with the smoking started and the drinking started. And I remember just the emptiness that came with that way of life. It wasn't what I thought it was. It seemed fun at first with a few friends, and then that quickly wore off. And the emptiness brought me into a real life of loneliness, and I didn't want to let anybody see that because I thought I was abnormal. I didn't think I was normal like everybody else, thinking everybody else had their good life kind of together, and I always hid this inner loneliness, fear, just filled with fear, and I didn't show it because I was very fighting all the time and things, but it was really lonely and fearful, and rejected God because the view of God that I had seen was not very healthy. It was, you're going to hell for all the bad things you're doing, and I just thought I was just this terrible person, And it wasn't until I actually heard about a God of love that really cared for me. And even though I didn't come to faith in my younger years, there was people God put in my path that I really saw had something. And an uncle that came home and said he had found faith, and we mocked him. He was the first one, we didn't understand it. But those seeds in my life of my aunt sending me little daily breads when I ended up in and out of jail as a youngster, 16, I started in and out of jail, and she'd send me daily breads. And just times I'd read it, and then I'd feel convicted, and I'd put it away, So there was people in my path that were just trying to point me to the right way, and I could feel the difference in them, but I wasn't ready to say to my friends, I'm not living these things. I just had no power to say no. And so it was a really lonely time for me more than anything. And so that was 14, probably 13, 14, 15, 16, and by that time my dad got out, and then I was really getting involved in criminal activity in my later teens. And that brought me into a real state of hopelessness. I knew it was wrong, I hated it, and I wanted to please my dad. My dad got out during that time. And I remember being in High Park, actually. He was out, I was 17, I think. We were in High Park in West Toronto, and he was telling me about, thought we were reincarnated from all these different lives, and he's all excited about all this, telling me about all this, you're going to work out the next life, we didn't get right in this life. And I was getting more depressed all the time, thinking I'm 17 years old, my life's a mess, I got to come back again and work all this stuff out in the next life. What he was excited about was bringing me into a depression. And I sat up in the park and I said, Dad, I don't know how I know this, but we're going to be used together in life for something. There's a purpose for our lives. Then we went back into 5 years of absolute darkness. Until 5 years later, in a prison cell in Eastern Canada, I heard the gospel through Billy Graham, that we could start over again, we could be pardoned, we could have a relationship with this loving God who cared about us, and we could start over again. And I didn't respond right away, but I just couldn't sleep for 3 or 4 days thinking about this message. If there's a God of love, I need to find out. And that's when I knelt down by my bed and I prayed. And I made God a deal without realizing what a covenant was back then. I said, God, if you're really real, like this man said, then please come into my life and help me to start over again. And then I said, if you'll reveal yourself to me in a way that I can know that I know, I'll follow you the rest of my life. And I waited, and nothing happened. I didn't feel any different. I went to sleep that night. All I knew was if there was a God, he heard me, because I really meant it. It wasn't get out of prison this time, which I'd done several times. Got out, went right back to doing what I was doing. This time was get me out of this prison that I was in within myself. But Craig, when I woke up the next morning, I was so filled with this hope, this feeling I couldn't describe. And I actually thought I was dreaming. I woke up and I thought, am I dreaming? Like I looked around and I started to pinch myself to see if I was awake. And while I'm pinching myself, in my mind I'm thinking, if I'm sleeping, I don't really want to wake up because it's the best I've ever felt, And then I remembered my prayer. And I got so excited. I sat up and I said, God, if this is what it's all about, I want it all. Just keep coming and please don't stop doing what you're doing. And I began to get filled up with this presence of love. I was still alone in my cell, but as I would start reading the Gideon Bible that they put in the shelf, I began to read that. My aunt told me to read the Gospel of John. When I began to read the Gospel, and I would encourage any young person, no matter where you're at in life, read the Gospel of John. It's so life-changing with an open heart and open mind. And as I was reading through it, I had these tears coming down my cheeks. I didn't know why, what was happening, because I didn't feel pain. But I'm reading about Jesus, how he came to give his life for us. And his last night with the disciples, he was saying, I'm going back to the Father. And when I get there, I'm going to ask him to fill you with the Comforter. And when I read that word Comforter, all of a sudden I realized all these new feelings I had was the presence of the Lord. That I had actually been, born anew with his presence. And that's been 35 years now. And it's never left me, Craig. And that's what motivates me to provide the same God of love that I've experienced to those who are around me.
Awesome. And knowing all of that, having been there, and we got this 13, 14, or 15-year-old watching.
Right.
If you could finish this sentence, if you're a young person in that same position I was in, here's a simple prayer you can say.
Yeah. Simple prayer for me was, God, please come in and show me who you are. And if you're not sure, I wasn't even sure there was a God at that moment. I just knew if there was this God of love that I had never heard of, a loving God, that I don't remember hearing about. I probably did, I'm sure, but my view was just really distorted because I had some bad religious experiences. And there's multitudes in that place of having a bad experience in a legalistic church or people that were judgmental toward you in their early journey maybe. But don't let people's way of portraying God steer you away from the real God who loves us. And just ask him, Lord, would you come in and reveal yourself to me? I want to know who you are. And if you do, I'm willing to follow what you teach me to be true. And it keeps us from feeling controlled by others or we have to do it someone else's way. The journey is our own. It's a faith journey. And it's a journey between the creation and the God who created us. And just however you call it to him, Lord, just come in and show me who you are. That's acceptable. That's what I did. And he showed up. And it's changed my life. And my family's life for generations forward.
And tell me about your mother and your father.
Well, a few weeks after I come to faith, Craig, I really felt that I was to write my father. I was in Dorchester Prison in New Brunswick. He was in Millhaven Prison in Ontario. And he'd been in for years at that point, 20-some-odd years. And I just had this overwhelming feeling. I didn't know how the Lord spoke to us then, but I just kept hearing in my heart, write your father. And I did not want to write him. I thought he'd be so upset with me for becoming a believer, because that meant no more smuggling drugs into the prison for him, no more criminal activity when he got out. And I was fearful of disappointing him. But a couple of weeks went by, and I was still in segregation, and just as I was getting out, I just thought, I got to tell him. So I remember just writing, Dad, I've given my heart to the Lord. I'm going to follow his way of life from here on in. And that's all I put, because I didn't know what else to say. And I sent off the letter, and what I expected, no response. But once I told him the first time, then I'm writing, I said, Dad, you just got to try. Jesus is a relationship with God. He's not a religion. He's not. And I began to talk to him about the court system. Dad, the crown attorney, just like the devil, always pointing out your faults and telling you how bad you are, right, before the judge. And I said, then there's the lawyer, and he represents Jesus, who's there for your benefit. But this lawyer actually dies on a cross to pay the penalty for the things you've done wrong. And if you accept what he's done, you can be pardoned. And pardon is the biggest word in the dictionary to an inmate. Right, you can be pardoned. Queen used to come over once a year and give a pardon to an individual in the Canadian system. God has the ability to do that for anyone who calls on his name. So I'm writing him these letters, and he's getting these letters, saying, what the heck is going on with my son? He saw me becoming like him. And so 2.5 months in, he almost had he was almost killed in a cell. 5 guys attacked him with a baseball bat and knives and almost took his life. And he was a big man from weightlifting, and I humbled him, and he realized life could be taken at any moment. So while he's in the hospital recuperating, my letters are coming. And finally he says, God, if this is really true, what you've done in my son's life, please come into my life. And when he wrote me, Craig, and said, Cal, the change I've seen in you through your letters, I've given my heart to the Lord. I was so overjoyed, just for a few seconds. And then I thought, no, this can't be true. He must be using this to get out of prison. Some guys do go to the chapel as part of their release plan, But then letter after letter about the joy and the peace. And when he said that he come into the presence of the Holy Spirit in his life, oh, so my mind went back through all the years of living in the world. We all curse the name of Jesus. We all curse the name of God when we're angry. But nobody talked good or bad about this Holy Spirit, this presence of the Lord. And all of a sudden, I jumped out of my skin. I said, he knows the Lord. I was so excited my dad had come to faith. But it did something to me. It made me able to share my faith. My mother I hadn't seen since I was 16. She left when I was 4. I saw her once at 16. And now years had gone by, and I began to pray for her. I had no idea where she was. All I knew was at 4, she fled to the States in fear of my father coming out of prison because she'd met another man. And so in 2001, I was able to go down. She found me on the internet, and I was able to go down with my family and visit her. I was able to share my faith with my mom, and 2 months later, she gave her heart to the Lord as well. So to see the Lord over a 20-year period restore all my family, my father, my mother, and my children grown up in the faith. I'm a very grateful man because of that. So God can affect your future generations, and he can swing back and touch the generations behind us if we're living for him. So I'm very privileged to see my mom and my dad both come to faith. My dad just passed a year and a half ago in March 2014, I think. And 15. He died of Hep C from tattoos from needles in prisons 30, 40 years ago. And it lay dormant, but it kicked in 2015 and passed in perfect peace. He had found his peace with the Lord, and he just wanted to go home and claim his new body that was promised to him. That's what he told the doctors. Don't give me any medication, I just want to go and get my new body. So, and for my kids to see my dad go home in perfect peace after the life that he lived, knowing that he was totally forgiven, and he was radiant in the hospital. And he said just days before he left, his voice was all gone, and Hep C had kicked in. He couldn't move. We were feeding him just enough water to talk, really. Cal. I said, yeah, Dad. He said, why do you think it's taken so long? And I said, Dad, that Cadillac body you've been asking the Lord for in heaven? I said, he's just putting the finishing touches on that. And I said, when that's complete, he's coming to get you. Big smile. He died with a big smile on his face just days before. He was going home to get his new body, to leave this old thing behind and start all over again in a heavenly kingdom. So, and my kids got to see that, so we were able to release them with perfect peace. That was quite a last few moments with my dad.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.